Dad's swamped at work, but he promised he'd be here to pick us up. Come on, let's go. Let's go. Lily bounced on the balls of her feet, her ponytail swinging. Fighting, 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 she chanted, her voice a little off-key but full of enthusiasm. 1, 2, 1, 2. She counted steps, her small sneakers squeaking on the gym floor. Lily, are you okay? Emily's voice cut through the excited din of the school sports day. The champion of the third-grade parent-child three-legged race at PS 123 is Mr. Johnson. The announcer's voice boomed over the loudspeakers. And Emily's dad is awesome, Emily beamed, clutching her dad's hand. Lily's lower lip trembled. I want a brilliant dad like him, she mumbled, her eyes fixed on Emily and her father, their faces alight with victory. He's not her dad, she stated, a little too loudly. He's my dad. A group of kids nearby paused their game of tag, their eyes turning towards Lily. Why didn't your dad join the game with you then? A boy with freckles and a mischievous grin asked tauntingly. You're lying, another girl chimed in, her voice dripping with accusation. He's Emily's dad. You don't have a dad. Yes, I do, Lily's voice cracked, rising in pitch. Lily's a liar without a dad. Liar! Liar! The chorus of children grew louder, their taunts echoing around her. Tears welled up in Lily's eyes, blurring the already chaotic scene. Mary, Lily's mom, rushed over, her face etched with worry. Please take your kids back to the classroom, she said, her voice tight with controlled anger, addressing the other parents nearby. She knelt down, pulling Lily into a hug. Lily, honey, it's okay. Mommy. Lily sobbed into Mary's shoulder, the humiliation stinging worse than any scraped knee. Later, as they walked away from the school, the festive music fading behind them, Mary's anger simmered. What were you thinking? She asked George, her voice strained. What aren't you someone else's dad? Lily echoed, her small voice laced with confusion and hurt. Mary, don't be angry, George pleaded, his face creased with guilt. I didn't know. Your mom asked me to come to Emily's sports day. How could I not? How could you not be mad? Mary retorted, her voice rising. Other kids have their dads with them, but Lily doesn't. What would Lily think? Have you even thought about it? George sighed, running a hand through his hair. Mary, don't think too much. I was afraid if Emily's classmates knew she didn't have a dad, they would bully her. It's my fault. I'll treat Lily much better. I promise. How can you make up for Lily's psychic scar? Mary shot back, her eyes blazing. A psychic scar, George. You think extra ice cream will fix this? Mary, can you spare George the worry? Sarah, George's sister and Emily's mom, interjected, her voice sharp. Stop looking for trouble all day. You're completely unreasonable. No, you're unreasonable, Sarah, Mary retorted, turning on her. You dragged him into this mess. Dad, Mom, stop arguing. Lily's voice, small but firm, broke through the escalating argument. I'm not angry. Please get back together. She looked from her mom to George, her eyes pleading. Let's just go home. The tense silence hung heavy in the air for a moment before George finally nodded. Let's go, Lily. We're almost home. The car ride home was quiet, filled with unspoken tension. Lily stared out the window, her small face pale. Back at their apartment, Mary moved with a strained calmness, her movements sharp and efficient as she prepared a simple dinner. Later, after Lily was tucked into bed, Mary and George sat in strained silence in the living room. Suddenly, the shrill ring of the phone shattered the quiet. Mary jumped, her hand flying to her chest. It was her mother. Mom? What's wrong? Her voice was laced with apprehension. The conversation was brief, punctuated by Mary's sharp intakes of breath and whispered questions. When she hung up, her face was ashen. George, she whispered, her voice trembling. Mom's had an accident. She needs us. Panic flared in George's eyes. What kind of accident? Is she okay? I don't know. They just said she's hurt badly. We need to go to the hospital, now. They rushed out of the apartment, leaving the half-eaten dinner on the table. The city lights blurred past as George sped through the streets, the silence in the car thick with fear. At the hospital, chaos reigned. Nurses hurried past, their faces grim. The air hung heavy with the sterile smell of antiseptic and a palpable sense of urgency. Mary's mother was in the emergency room, surrounded by doctors and nurses. Mary pushed through the crowd, her heart pounding in her chest. Mom? Mom, how do you feel? Are you all right? Mary's voice was choked with emotion. She reached for her mother's hand, her fingers trembling. I'll help you. Her mother's eyes flickered open, focusing on Mary with difficulty. Her voice was weak, barely a whisper. Where's Lily? Lily? George, hovering behind Mary, stepped forward. Lena's fine, Mom. She's at home. We're here now. George, I'm hurt, her mother gasped, her breath ragged. I'm stuck. Help me. Wait for me, George said, his voice strained. I'll be back soon. I promise. He turned to a nurse, his voice urgent. My mother-in-law, she needs help. What's happening? The nurse's face was grave. She's seriously injured. We're doing everything we can. Time stretched into an agonizing eternity. Mary paced the waiting room, her anxiety mounting with each passing minute. George tried to reassure her, but his own fear was evident in his eyes. Lily's face flashed through Mary's mind, her daughter's earlier hurt and confusion a sharp pang in her heart. Suddenly a doctor approached them, his expression serious. Mrs. Davis, he addressed Mary, your mother, she suffered a severe head injury, a brain hemorrhage. She needs surgery immediately. Mary's breath hitched. Surgery? Is she going to be okay? The doctor hesitated. It's serious. We need your consent to operate, and we need to reach her family. Do you have other family we can contact? Yes, Mary stammered, her mind racing. Her husband, my father, but I can't reach him. He's out of town, and my brother. George, he's here. She gestured weakly to George, who stood beside her, his face pale. I'll call Dad, Mary said, fumbling for her phone. But her hands were shaking so badly she could barely dial. You can't go anywhere now, Mom. Lily's voice, small and scared, suddenly cut through the tension. Lily stood in the doorway of the waiting room, her eyes wide with fear. Sarah must have brought her to the hospital. Uncle George, Lily whispered, her voice trembling. Stay with me. I'm scared. She clung to George's leg, her small body shaking. George knelt down, pulling Lily into a tight embrace. It's okay, Lily. I'm here. Grandma's going to be all right. But his voice lacked conviction, even to his own ears. Mary's phone rang, but it wasn't her father. It was the hospital again. Mrs. Davis, we need to speak with Mr. Johnson. It's urgent. He's right here, Mary said, handing the phone to George. George took the phone, his face etched with worry. He listened intently, his brow furrowing deeper with each passing second. He spoke briefly, his voice low and strained, then hung up, his face ashen. What is it? Mary asked, her voice barely a whisper. What did they say? George hesitated, his eyes darting between Mary and Lily. It's about Emily. Emily? Sarah's voice, sharp and accusatory, cut through the air. She stepped forward, her face tight with anxiety. What about Emily? Is she okay? Emily, she's sick, George said, his voice thick with emotion. She's very sick. They need me. They need me to come to the children's hospital. Now. What? What's wrong with Emily? Sarah demanded, her voice rising in panic. She needs a blood transfusion, George explained, his voice strained. She has a rare blood type, R negative, and I'm the only one who's a match. Silence descended upon the waiting room, thick and heavy with unspoken emotions. Mary stared at George, her face pale with shock. Lily clung to George's leg, her eyes wide with confusion and fear. Sarah's face crumpled, tears welling up in her eyes. You have to go, Sarah whispered, her voice breaking. Emily, she needs you. Mary stood frozen, her mind reeling. Her mother was in surgery, her life hanging in the balance. And now, Emily, George's niece, Sarah's daughter, also needed him. A terrible choice loomed before them, impossible and agonizing. But, Mom, Mary whispered, her voice barely audible. Mom needs us too. She's in surgery. They said Mom's going to be okay, George said, his voice strained, avoiding Mary's gaze. They said she's stable. But Emily's condition is critical. They said she might not make it if she doesn't get the transfusion soon. But what about Mom? Lily's small voice broke through the tension, laced with fear and confusion. Uncle George, please answer the phone. Lena and I need you. Please answer the phone. Lily's words from earlier, from the sports day, echoed in Mary's mind, a cruel and ironic twist of fate. George looked down at Lily, his heart breaking. He knelt down, taking her small face in his hands. Lily, honey, don't worry, he said, his voice thick with emotion. Didn't you see Grandma? She wasn't injured badly. She was actually only slightly injured. She should be fine. He tried to sound reassuring, but the lie hung heavy in the air. Mary stared at him, her eyes wide with disbelief and a dawning horror. Slightly injured? George, they said brain hemorrhage. Surgery. She's fighting for her life. Your injuries really can't be delayed any longer, a doctor's voice interrupted, his tone urgent. He addressed Mary. Please, Mrs. Davis, we need your consent to proceed with the surgery. Mary's mind was a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. Her mother's life, Emily's life, George caught in the impossible middle. She looked at Lily, her daughter's face pale and tear-streaked, then back at George, his eyes pleading. Please, Sarah begged, her voice choked with sobs. Please save my daughter. She's a nice person. I can't live without her. Please save Emily. Lena Mitchell, Lily suddenly cried out, her small voice surprisingly strong. Hurry and save Lena. I'm begging you to save Lena. She's badly injured. Her condition is critical. She needs surgery right now. Mitchell, please save Lena first. She can't wait. Lily's desperate plea, her innocent misunderstanding of names and situations, pierced Mary's heart like a knife. She looked at her daughter, at George, at Sarah, at the doctor waiting for her decision. The weight of the impossible choice crushed her. Mr. Mitchell, Lily continued, her voice trembling but resolute. I'm fine. Please save my mom. George pulled Lily into his arms, holding her tight. Lily, don't be scared, he whispered, his voice choked with emotion. I'll wait for you at the door. Don't be scared. He looked at Mary, his eyes filled with a desperate plea. Mary, I have to go. I have to try to save Emily. Mary stood frozen, tears streaming down her face, unable to speak, unable to move. She watched as George, with Lily clinging to his hand, hurried out of the waiting room, disappearing down the corridor. Sarah followed close behind, her face buried in her hands, sobbing uncontrollably. The doctor turned back to Mary, his expression grave. Mrs. Davis, Lena urgently needs a blood transfusion. She and Jorge have Rh-negative blood. Tell Jorge to come here quickly, or Lena's life will be in danger. The doctor's words echoed in Mary's ears, a cruel twist of fate, misnaming her daughter, highlighting the very blood type that now tore her family apart. She watched them leave, her heart shattering into a million pieces. Her mother, her daughter, George, Emily, everything was falling apart. Later, in the sterile quiet of Lily's hospital room, Mary sat by her daughter's bedside, watching Lily sleep. The rhythmic beeping of the machines filled the silence, a constant reminder of Lily's fragile state. Lily had been transferred to the children's hospital, the same hospital George had rushed to for Emily. The irony was a bitter pill to swallow. Lily stirred in her sleep, her brow furrowed. Uncle, she mumbled, her voice weak and small. Uncle, can I skip the medicine? It's too bitter. I'm afraid of taking medicine. I can't swallow it. Mary's heart ached. Lily, even in her delirium, was calling for George, for the uncle who had chosen another child, another niece over her. In the next room, Sarah sat by Emily's bedside, holding her daughter's hand. Emily was awake, her eyes wide and scared. Eva, don't be scared, Sarah murmured, stroking Emily's hair. I'm here with you. She glanced at her phone, checking for messages, for any news from George. Nothing. Back in Lily's room, Mary's phone rang. It was the hospital again. Mrs. Davis, we've been trying to reach Mr. Johnson. We need to know if he's arrived at the blood bank. Lena's condition is deteriorating rapidly. He's not here, Mary said, her voice flat, devoid of emotion. He's at another hospital. He's donating blood to his niece. Silence on the other end of the line. Then a voice, cold and clinical. Mrs. Davis, we need to consider other options. Lena needs blood urgently. Mary hung up, the weight of despair crushing her. She looked at Lily, her daughter's face pale and still, her small chest rising and falling weakly. She picked up her phone again, scrolling through her contacts, searching for a miracle, for anyone who could help. Hours later, the hospital room was filled with a hushed tension. Doctors and nurses moved with a frantic urgency around Lily's bed. The rhythmic beeping of the machines had become a frantic, erratic pulse. He doesn't answer my calls, Mary whispered, her voice cracking, staring at her phone screen, willing George to pick up, to answer, to do something, anything. Why isn't he here yet? 200 volts, one shock, a voice barked. The room crackled with electricity. 200 volts, two shocks. Another jolt, Lily's small body arching on the bed. 250 volts, one shock. Desperate measures, desperate attempts to cling to life. 250 volts, two shocks. The silence that followed was deafening. The frantic beeping slowed, then flatlined. A long, drawn-out, agonizing beep, the sound of finality. Mary stood frozen, staring at the monitor, at the flat line that stretched across the screen, a stark symbol of loss. Her world had just shattered. Slowly, she walked to Lily's bedside, her legs heavy, her heart numb. She reached out, gently touching Lily's cheek, still warm, but lifeless. Lena, don't scare me, she whispered, her voice breaking. Open your eyes, look at me. Rage, raw and uncontrollable, surged through her. She grabbed her phone, dialing George's number again, her fingers trembling with fury. He finally answered, his voice sounding tired, distant. What the heck is George doing? Mary screamed into the phone, her voice raw with grief and fury. If he was here just now, Lily could still be saved. Mary! George's voice was hesitant, weak. Don't you marry me? Mary screamed, her voice cracking. My daughter is dead. Dead, George. And you weren't here. You chose Emily. You chose your niece over your own daughter. Mary, I didn't know, George stammered, his voice choked with emotion. You didn't know? Mary shrieked, her voice hysterical. You didn't know your daughter was dying? You didn't know your wife was in surgery? You chose them. You chose them over us. You don't deserve to be Lily's dad. Tears streamed down Mary's face, hot and angry. She remembered George's promise to Lily, whispered in the quiet of her bedroom just weeks ago. Lena, sleep tight. I'll always be by your side. I'm your guardian angel. What's a guardian angel? Lily had asked, her eyes wide with innocent curiosity. You and I have Rh-negative blood, George had explained, his voice gentle. If something happens to you, only I can save you, so I'm your guardian angel. You said you're Lena's guardian angel, Mary sobbed, her voice breaking. You'll protect her forever. But now you're protecting someone else's kid. The silence on the other end of the line was deafening, broken only by Mary's ragged sobs. Finally, George spoke, his voice barely a whisper. Mary, it's my fault. This time it's all my fault. I'll apologize to you. Shut up, Mary screamed, cutting him off. Shut up. It's between us. None of your business. Sarah's voice, sharp and defensive, cut through the line. Enough, Mary roared, her voice filled with a primal grief and rage that shook her to her core. I'm Lily's mom. I have a lifetime to spend with her. No need for you anymore. You can't accompany Lily anymore. Also, you'll never see her again. What do you mean by that? George's voice was filled with fear and confusion. Uncle! Lily's voice, faint but clear, suddenly echoed in the room. Mary froze, her breath catching in her throat. She looked down at Lily, her daughter's eyes fluttering open, her gaze unfocused, distant. Uncle, I want to go home, Lily whispered, her voice barely audible. Mary's heart shattered anew. Home. Lily wanted to go home, but home was no longer a safe place, no longer a place of love and laughter. Home was now a place of unbearable loss, of shattered promises, of a guardian angel who had failed to protect his charge. Mary gently stroked Lily's hair, her tears falling silently onto her daughter's pale face. "It's okay, honey," she whispered, her voice choked with grief. "Mommy's here. We're going home soon. We're going home." But home would never be the same again, and Lily would never know that her guardian angel had chosen to save someone else's child, leaving her alone in the darkness.